Otto has come to visit the grave that his body lies within. He has come to say goodbye to his old life. A life wasted on villainy and failed schemes. A life whose sole victory was cheating death by switching places with his greatest enemy. Farewell, Otto Octavius. From now on, his name is Peter Parker. And from now on, he is Spider-Man. Suddenly, Otto gets an update on his Bluetooth from a police radio frequency. There are officers down at Empire State University. They are currently under heavy fire at the Science Building on 11th and Greenwich. The police officer continues to explain that the armored super cops that were deployed are useless. Speed Demon, Shocker, the new Beetle, the Living Brain, Overdrive, and Boomerang, the new self-proclaimed Sinister Six. Their plan, which was going exceedingly well at this point, is to secure the Baromic Oscillator from within one of the labs. Sirens blare all around the group as police officers take turn diving for cover and firing from their pistols with little advancement on their part. The Living Brain had recently returned from within the lab with their prize, and Overdrive, their getaway car, had just arrived. Overdrive manned the big wheel, which is certainly a lot less ridiculous in person. When Overdrive arrived, he ran over each of the super cops before producing a large mechanical claw from the rim of the wheel and proceeded to grab at the oscillator like some kind of cheap game. The Sinister Six are victorious, Boomerang states, and this will be their first of many victories that the all-new Sinister Six will claim. Boomerang is interrupted by a voice in the distance claiming that the notion is ridiculous. Apparently, they're letting anyone call themselves the Sinister Six these days. Spider-Man swings in and checks his surroundings to see who would have the gall to call themselves that. Overdrive? Pathetic. Boomerang and Shocker? Laughable. The Living Brain? Archaic. But the new Beetle does seem to be a random element. All the same, it shouldn't be a problem for the superior abilities of Spider-Man. Shocker and Beetle fire their individual energy blasts, and Boomerang adds in with an electro ring of his own. However, they are as predictable as ever. Spider-Man easily dodges his foes, and the projectiles collide with the titanium-plated back of the Living Brain, causing him to beg the question, why was he ever built with a pain receptor? With one down already, the rest should not take long. His spider sense alerts him on an incoming James Sanders, the Speed Demon. This could actually pose a problem for Otto. Before he is able to finish a thought, the Speed Demon has already approached him. He's faster than Spider-Man in every way. The demon grabs Spider-Man by the throat and slams him to the pavement. He then proceeds to send a flurry of punches at Spider-Man, hundreds of blows in a fraction of a second, more times than Otto has ever been hit in his entire life. Spider-Man declares that he has had enough and zips a web line at a nearby building in order to make his escape. He can't believe Parker put up with this kind of abuse. The man must have been insane. Boomerang, relishing seeing the sight of Spider-Man turning tail, sprints forward and throws one of his nitro rings at the wall crawler. Spider-Man easily dodges the modified Boomerang. With his abilities, he finds that most threats are easily avoided. However, it is still not worth risking his life. The Boomerang turns back and Spider-Man dodges it once again, but this time, the projectile continues launching in its downward curve directly at a police officer. Spider-Man turns his direction and launches forward, passing the Boomerang and tackles the officer out of the way while at the same time absorbing the impact from the colliding Boomerang's explosion. That blast noticeably hurts him, and, try as he might, Spider-Man struggles to get back up on his feet. Otto cannot find any logical reason why his body moved on its own like that. Boomerang takes this opportunity to take out one of his razor rings and holds it to Spider-Man's throat. Spider-Man then activates the claws from the end of his fingertips, razor sharp in their own right, and slashes at the Boomerang, piercing his armor and shredding the skin on the chest with a single swipe. Boomerang had no idea Spider-Man was using claws now and wonders when the hell did Spider-Man start doing that? It doesn't matter, he decides before telling the all-new Sinister Six to evacuate. They got what they were looking for. After they make their escape, surrounding police officers congregate around Spider-Man in order to congratulate him and thank him for saving a life. If there is anything that Spider-Man needs from them, all he has to do is ask. "Well," Spider-Man says as he raises an eyebrow and looks over to the living brain. He, Spider-Man, the hero, would appreciate it if the officers dropped off the automaton to Horizon Labs. He knows someone that will find use of it. The living brain is promptly delivered, and Peter Parker is seen rolling in the broken bot by one Grady Scraps. Grady claims that the living brain is like the Super Nintendo of robots. Imbecile. Otto taps into Peter's memories of Grady to find that he may be good-natured, but he is prone to mistakes. Otto quickly decides that it would be best that people like him be avoided. He enters the lab of Peter Parker and promptly begins his work, earnestly searching throughout all of Peter's memories for any information about the members of the Sinister Six, any weakness that can be exploited. Max Modell, Peter's boss, enters the lab and asks Otto for a moment. Otto tells Max that he is busy, but if he must, he will indulge him in conversation. Max tells Otto that he has been waiting to speak with him about his work with Spider-Man. All the work that he has been doing thus far has been good, but the pattern that Peter Parker has been showing is that he has only been concerned with making items with weaponizing capabilities. Max tells Otto that Horizon Labs was never created with the mindset that they would be weapons manufacturers, but Otto counters that the greatest advancements were made in times of war. He then leads Max over to his workstation to show him the more peaceful applications that he has been working on for his inventions. Max has to understand that there is no way that he, Peter Parker, would be so hell-bent on making something so destructive. Max examines the notes and admits they certainly are groundbreaking. If Mr. Parker is able to complete these, he will earn yet another feather in his cap. As Max leaves, Otto agrees. Yes, Peter Parker. Everything he will ever accomplish from this day forth will go under the name of his greatest enemy. He then begins to reason that it just isn't how it works. He is Peter Parker. All of Peter's memories and victories are now his, because he is Peter freaking Parker. Otto's Bluetooth rings. It's Mary Jane. Perhaps being Peter Parker isn't such a bad thing. Superpowers, youth, vigor, high-paying job, state-of-the-art lab, and then there is this lovely creature, Mary Jane. Otto examines Mary Jane up and down as she continues with her story about her nightclub. Yes, Peter's life will suit him just fine. And the best part about it, the view. Mary Jane notices that Otto is staring and asks him if something is distracting him. Maybe it's the Bluetooth that he's wearing. She tells him that she really hates that thing. Otto informs her that it's not just a Bluetooth, but a monitor. It's Spider-Man related. Earlier today, when he scratched the Boomerang, he was, in fact, injecting him with 80 nano spider tracers, each one outfitted with microscopic GPS and audio transmitters. He now knows their location and the plans of their next assault. Call it a tactical advantage, Otto brags as he sloppily pours his wine. Mary looks at the glass as it quickly fills and knows that it's never a good sign when Peter starts drinking. She voices her concern, but Otto counters that the night is still young. They have plenty of time to relax. Now please, she should tell him more about her day. The next morning, the Sinister Six attack Horizon Labs. They blast through the front doors to the lab and secure the initial area before Boomerang instructs each of them on their specific tasks. Speed Demon is specifically instructed to retrieve the atmospheric condenser and hastily retrieves the item. His part is crucial once again to their victory. Another mission made within a blink of an eye. As the six prepare to make their leave, they notice that they are surrounded by webs. Impossible! Boomerang spouts. They were in and out in under 10 seconds. That may be true, Spider-Man mocks, but he was able to set up a street-wide blockade in 9. It must be his proportionate speed of a spider, he scoffs, annoying his enemies and irking on Speed Demon. As Speed Demon races forward, Spider-Man clicks a button on his chest and activates Plan Omega 3. The traction on the floor under Speed Demon is all but erased, causing the demon to lose his footing and fall to the ground. Spider-Man produced this countermeasure the night before. Spider-Man then shoots out a web, clotheslining Speed Demon, causing severe damage and nearly decapitating him. Next is Countermeasure Epsilon 5. The streetlights in front of Horizon Labs glow a bright crimson, and the Sinister Six all stand in awe as they watch the ongoing event. Spider-Man states that this will be Horizon Labs' latest invention, the quick, cheap, and easy to install power dampening field. Shocker's gauntlets begin to short circuit. The Beetle tries to fly away, but her suit fails and she falls to the floor. Spider-Man turns off Omega 3 as he lands and grabs the Beetle with the web line and swings her counterclockwise from 11 to 12 and collides her with the big wheel. Their individual armor proves to be nothing more than dead weight under the light of the power dampener. This can also be said for the gyroscopic stabilizers within the big wheel. The collision of the Beetle causes the massive wheel to lose its balance and topple over on an unsuspecting Shocker, with a large thud that can be heard from throughout the campus. "That was perfect, Spidey," Nora Winters, Daily Bugle employee shouts. She holds up her camera and tells Spider-Man that this is going on the front page. Good thing Spider-Man called them 2.5 hours ago, informing them on the future events. Spider-Man let them know that this new so-called Sinister Six was going to attack Horizon Labs, and that everyone is invited to have a ringside seat to witness their complete and utter defeat at his hand. The baromic oscillator and the atmospheric condenser. It was almost too obvious to Spider-Man that they were planning to create a weather machine. What did the Boomerang expect to do? Blackmail the city with a tornado? Their plan was uninspired from the start, tripe, and unworthy of the Sinister Six. Spider-Man jumps forward and grabs Boomerang by the throat before sending him to the ground, striking him again and again. Boomerang begins to spit out blood and cough for air. Spider-Man's claws emerge once again and he slashes down at his opponent. Boomerang pleads for mercy, telling Spider-Man that he won, and Spider-Man agrees. He's winning. He's winning. This time, he gets to win. He gets to beat the Sinister Six, and everyone's going to see it. And they will get the message that this is what happens when they cross this Spider-Man. "No!" a voice shouts from within Otto's head, and his hand is stilled. The sound from the surrounding area fades back into Otto's perception, him realizing he just lost himself for a moment. A nearby officer congratulates Spider-Man, telling him that they can handle it from there. Spider-Man complies, standing up and backing away from the Boomerang's broken body. That was odd, Otto thinks to himself. He had every intention of ending the man's life, but his hand was stayed. Why? Within the depths of Otto's mind, a specter of a thought emerges. It claims that it is Peter Parker. and one day, he will get his body back. It is the second day on the job. Not a single person knows that Otto Octavius took over Peter Parker's body. Nobody knows that he is a different, far superior Spider-Man. As Spider-Man arrives back at Empire State University with their stolen science equipment, he is greeted by the Dean of Students. Camera crews and newsmen flock to get a chance to see and speak with Spider-Man. This couldn't be going better for him if he had planned it himself, says Nora Winters, Daily Bugle reporter. The science wing happens to also be the Marla J. Jameson Memorial Wing. So, another special guest has arrived that would like to thank Spider-Man personally. Why, it's Mayor J. Jonah Jameson himself. What an unexpected surprise. Jameson tells Spider-Man that they may have had their differences in the past, but there is a slight possibility that Jonah may have been wrong about Spidey. Spider-Man actually is one heck of a guy. They shake hands and the cameras catch it all for the news stations to play. Elsewhere, Mary Jane and Carly Cooper share a small breakfast as they watch the news story unfold. As both of the women see Spider-Man shake hands with the mayor, they both have a deepening feeling of unrest. When did everything get so weird with Spider-Man? For Carly, it was just around the time she ran into Doc Ock. He said something to her, and she can't exactly talk about it because it all just sounds so crazy. Mary Jane tries to level with Carly, but ultimately explains that she and Peter might be getting back together. Later, as Otto arrives at lunch with that Watson woman, he realizes that things are certainly running smoother for himself as Spider-Man, and now it is on to Phase 2, a better life for Peter Parker. It all starts with Mary Jane. Everything's proceeding according to plan. Parker was a fool to keep such a ravaging creature at such a distance, a mistake that he shall rectify. As he prepares to sit down with Mary Jane, a fire truck whizzes by. Otto tries to stay, but Mary Jane convinces him that he needs to save the day. Damn it, Otto thinks. Being Spider-Man is so inconvenient. He can see Peter's memories, that he puts up with this kind of thing all the time. There has to be a better way. Early the next morning, Uatu, another scientist at Horizon Labs, knocks beggingly at the door to Peter Parker's lab. He states that he needs Peter's assistance building some sort of childish contraption from some now outdated movie franchise. But never mind the noise. He cannot be distracted now. Otto is almost finished. Now, behold, his new and improved Spider-Bot. Otto eagerly shows his new assistant, the living brain, his invention, instructing the dear mechanoid to replicate his action and construct 800 more. Otto begins to chuckle to himself. Yes, this will solve his problem nicely. On his second attempt at a date with the Watson woman, when she brings up the spider patrols, he informs her that it is already taken care of. He has deployed digital spider eyes across all of his patrol routes. With a simple swipe on an app, thwip thwip thwip, city patrolled. Admittedly, Mary Jane is impressed. It's smart, but it's not Peter. Otto counters that this is him being Peter, a smarter Peter, a smarter Spider-Man, a more efficient Spider-Man who has more time for Mary Jane. Well, he asks, isn't that what you always wanted? Doc Ock dating trial number 1. While Mary Jane did say yes to the date to the planetarium, and with his patented yawn and stretch move still in full effect, the results remained inconclusive. A simple peck on the cheek. Trial number 2, ballroom dancing. The results were disappointing to say the least. Watson dating trial number 3, ice skating. While Mary Jane states she appreciates the slow dating pace, Otto cannot say anything more than, of course. Wonderful. Even on the fourth date, dancing, she still eludes him. It doesn't make sense. She's Mary Jane. He's Peter Parker. What the hell is going on? Suddenly, Otto's spider sense goes off. It is only a light warning, nothing immediate, so it is easy enough for Otto to put to the back of his mind, along with that indecipherable buzzing that he keeps hearing. More important than any small danger is the realization of the missing element that Otto had previously overlooked. Danger. He takes Mary Jane to the roof of the club and easily convinces her to grab his hand. It's been a while, but they're going web swinging. For a moment, the results seem to be successful. All this time, Otto realizes the spider was the missing element. Otto and Mary Jane arrive at her apartment window and he opens it so that she may go inside. It has always been Spider-Man and Mary Jane. A woman like Mary Jane Watson lives for danger and excitement. Mary Jane thanks Otto but tells him that he isn't allowed to come in. She would invite him inside, but Carly is already staying with her. She's been there recovering since she was injured by Dr. Octopus. But Peter remembers that, right? Damn it! His schemes are undone at every turn. Otto quickly says goodnight to the two women and begins to zip away into the city. He searches the depths of Peter's memories in order to find a solution to his problem. And that's when he realizes he was a fool for not thinking of it sooner. He can be with Mary Jane anytime he wants because she was with Parker, and now Parker's memories are his. He can relive it all over and over again. Each kiss, every tender moment, her touch, her taste, the feel of every inch of her. The next day is a stress-free day for Otto. A day free of idolizing over Mary Jane Watson, he decides as he makes his way to work. However, within his lab, as he sips on his Earl Grey tea, he gets a SpiderBot notification on his tablet from SpiderBot 1, which just so happens to be located over Mary Jane's nightclub. He picks up his tablet to see the video footage of some strange bird-like creatures attacking the club and going after the Watson woman. Without a second thought, he decides that he must help her at once. There is not a moment to lose. Within the club, shrunken harpy-like creatures flutter about and cause rampant destruction. Glass shatters and chairs are flipped as they look for their objective. One of the mini vultures flies to the other side of the bar and shatters the plaster in the wall and removes it, revealing a safe. Exactly where the boss said it would be, one chirps. The small vulture removes a paper from the safe, reads it, and cheers. Boss? Mary Jane wonders. They must be talking about Toombs, the previous owner of the building. Elsewhere, leaving Horizon Labs, Spider-Man swings through the city at full speed, overlooking anything else he would deem a distraction. At this point, Mary Jane is certainly rethinking the whole buy a supervillain hideout thing. She doesn't know exactly what the Vulture's goons are looking for, but if Toombs wants it, she can't let them have it. She attempts to knock out one of the intruders with a heavy bottle, but her swing is too slow. She is outmaneuvered and picked up by her arms. This is a chance for the mini vulture that picked her up, Gilly, to show her what happens when people think they can move into the vulture's old nest. He lifts her out of the broken hole in the side of the building before promptly dropping her to the city streets below. Otto arrives just in time and sends a web net down to catch Mary Jane. She is caught, still a couple stories in the air, and she wonders aloud how exactly he, Spider-Man, is always there for her. Well, that's easy, says Otto. She always has been Peter's first stop on his patrols. Mary Jane stands up and begins to lift Otto's mask. His heart begins to race. He not only has all of Peter's memories, but his feelings as well, which can't be good. He denies Mary Jane and tells her that this time, it isn't going to work. His job as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man is to keep her safe. But this relationship, this whole Peter-Mary Jane thing, this is the biggest trap of all. So the best way to do that is to move on. And that was it, Mary Jane explains to Carly. And then Peter just left. The two girls sit on the sofa as Mary Jane explains the night's events. The way she puts it, Carly thinks, Peter sounds like a totally different person. Carly thinks back to the last conversation she had with Dr. Octopus, and it all starts to click. Carly tells Mary Jane that she appreciates her hospitality, but it may be time for her to get back to the Force. She is sure that she has some old case files backing up, and right now, she knows there's at least one mystery waiting to be solved. A spider signal on top of the police station? Really? He's not going to show up, Officer Cooper tells Chief Pratchett and Mayor J. Jonah Jameson. Oh, how Jonah envies the young woman. She's able to first-hand witness the dawn of a new golden age. Him, running the city, and the dastardly web-slinger, is finally becoming an agent of order, a man of the law. His to command at the literal flick of a switch. Idiot, Spider-Man thinks as he approaches and throws one of his spider bots onto the signal light and overloading it with power. The signal overloads and flashes bright, almost blinding those nearby, and then immediately shuts down. Jameson asks, "What in God's name are you doing, Webhead? That thing is city property." "Well, isn't it obvious, Mayor Jameson?" Otto replies, "Passing your little test. A giant beacon in the sky, announcing to all of my enemies where they can find me? Only an idiot would put that into effect, and J. Jonah Jameson is no idiot. So clearly, it was a test, and clearly, I passed." "Oh, well, yes, of course that was all a test," the mayor stammers. Spider-Man moves on to say that he will be providing a one-way phone that Jonah will be able to contact him on. Jonah agrees out of embarrassment before letting Chief Pratchett inform Spider-Man on the ongoing events. The Vulture is on the loose and sending small bird-like creatures to attack the city. They were actually hoping that Spider-Man could help catch them up on some of the events from Club MJ. Spider-Man informs them that Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, previously used the building as a hideout before. At the time, it was called the Wake. The Chief and Mayor decide that since Officer Carly Cooper and Spider-Man teamed up to take down the Vulture last time, perhaps they will be successful in another partnership in this endeavor as well. If he must, Spider-Man complies, but he will need full access to their forensics lab. Once they are alone, Carly asks Spider-Man, what is he doing? He could have just used his own science lab, but he just wanted to flex and push around the mayor. He's bullying him. No, manipulating him. That is not the Peter Parker she knows. Old Spider-Man messing with Jameson? How is that not him being Peter? Otto is able to adjust the lenses in his mask to track the magnetic frequency of the Vulture's wings, and they end up working spectacularly. He will track down his old teammate in no time. He can still remember the first times they associated themselves with one another, where the others of the Sinister Six would seem brutish. The two of them used their minds to fight where their bodies could not. The memory of Peter Parker gets flung from one of Otto's memories to another. That's new, he thinks as he watches Otto and Adrian speak about future endeavors. What will the Vulture do after they have killed the bug? Otto asks. Well, that's easy, the Vulture tells him. Hopefully, he will finally be able to pull off that big score. It's honestly all he's ever wanted, but Spider-Man keeps getting in his way. What about you, Otto? He asks. But before Otto's memory can finish the statement, everything freezes. The memory of Peter walks around the confines of Otto's memory and decides that he will poke around for a little bit. The Otto up top must be distracted. And he is. Swinging by, Spider-Man finds numerous magnetic trails all converging at a small, broken-down dwelling in the midst of the city. A number of bird-like creatures also return to the building, hands full of their prizes from the night. They brought money, jewelry, and everything else that was on the Vulture's list. Does this mean they get to keep their flying privileges now? Of course, Adrian says with a sneer. Better than that. Here, you also get game tokens! Adrian tosses the small coins into the air, and the small bird creatures cheer with glee. Their boss is the best boss in the world, they chant and giggle. Good, Adrian agrees. Now who wants pizza? Suddenly, Spider-Man appears from the hole broken into the roof and lands only yards away from the Vulture and his throne. Otto tells him that he isn't there to fight. He has a proposition for him. If the Vulture stops all of this, like he seriously stops right now, no more crimes, schemes, or master plans. If he walks away from this life, then Spider-Man will give him everything he always wanted, an enormous nest egg that he can finally retire on. What? The gall, the audacity, you young, impudent pest, always with the jokes. Adrian points his finger at Spider-Man, signaling for his minions to surround their enemy. Destroy him. What? No, this isn't a joke. This is the real deal, Spider-Man begs. The creatures swarm and claw at Spider-Man with their talons, tearing pieces out of his mask. He has bank accounts around the globe, $50 million. It could all be Adrian's if he just stops this. No more winged contraptions or bird-themed lairs or circus midget henchmen. One of the creatures is able to cut Otto, causing him to throw his fist out of reaction. His fist makes contact with the creature and it flies back and crashes into the wall, making a crater where it collides before slowly sinking to the floor. Oh my god, he hit Gully, one of the creatures proclaims. The creature that hit the wall, now unconscious on the floor. His helmet was knocked off in the collision and now lies amidst the dust on the floor, revealing that these are not bird creatures at all. They're not even midgets. They're children. Suddenly, within Otto's mind, Peter is taken directly to a small apartment window. As Peter peers into the window, he wonders what kind of memory could he be in for this time. Oh. Peter sees Otto's father, Torbert, laying hands on him. Torbert smacks Otto's face so savagely that Otto's glasses fall to the floor. What? Do you think I'm made of money, boy? His father demands for an answer. Every damn light, Otto. You left every damn light in the house on, and who do you think is gonna pay for that? You or me? Otto raises his hand to his swollen face as he now bleeds from his nose. I'm sorry, Papa. I'm sorry. Within the building, Otto seeps with rage. His fists clench and shake. The Vulture made him strike a child. Why? Why on earth would he use children? The Vulture watches Spider-Man poorly try to contain his rage and wonders aloud, what has Spider-Man so upset this time? The Vulture has always preyed and lived off the young and disenfranchised. His last minions were also runaways, and Spider-Man wasn't nearly as mad at that. Otto accesses Peter's memories before telling Adrian that that was different. They were teenagers. This is too far. Still, the Vulture doesn't understand. Or maybe it is just Spider-Man who doesn't understand. This is simply what the Vulture is. Otto, never being fully aware of his former teammate's path, looks at him like he's seen the Vulture for the first time, and all he sees is a monster. What has gotten into you? The Vulture steps back and Spider-Man lunges forward. Then, the Vulture lifts off into the sky. The Vulture children dogpile onto Spider-Man, but he knocks them off as if they were light as leaves in the fall. The children, terrified at the power of the web slinger, decide that their boss can take care of this. The Vulture fights Spider-Man all the time. In the air, the Vulture soars as Spider-Man attempts to close the gap. He is a fool to follow the Vulture in the air. This is his element, and the Spider really should have learned by now. But perhaps it is the Vulture that still doesn't understand. This is not going to be the same fight that they have been doing over and over. Before, Otto may have taken it easy on him, fighting a pathetic senior citizen with arms that have traded blows with the Hulk. Spider-Man jumps on the Vulture's back and begins to strangle him. The Vulture knocks him back with a wave of an arm. With his new and improved suit, he is able to manipulate gravity at unheard of levels, greatly amplifying his strength. But it is not enough. Spider-Man zips another web line up at the Vulture, making contact, but also letting out the telltale beep that signals that he is low on web fluid. The Vulture is quite familiar with the sound. What say they go higher, then? The Vulture lifts Spider-Man high into the air before looping around in order to get the drop on the bug. This time, the Vulture will test his strength. He asks Spider-Man which he would prefer, the drop or 80 times the force of gravity snapping his neck. Spider-Man is barely able to respond, but before he passes out from the lack of oxygen, he presses onto the spider on his chest in orders to activate Plan Epsilon 2. One of the spider bots sitting on the beacon on top of the police station activates and begins to reroute all the energy from the building into the spider beacon as it crackles with energy. Spider-Man's eyes polarize and turn black before the powerful light beneath them erupts. Spider-Man's eyes remain protected, but the Vulture lets out a scream in pain. His skin grows hot as the light bathes them both. His eyes, he mumbles, and tears begin to build. He can't, somebody help him, he calls out in pain, but Spider-Man holds him upright so that he has no choice but to look into his fate. The poor, blind, old fool. Don't worry, Spider-Man will help him, because he can see things perfectly. This world has no more use for men like Toomes, so Spider-Man will do his part and help him step into the light. Spider-Man tilts forward and sends the Vulture careening in the direction of the police station. He jumps off of the Vulture just seconds before the Vulture crashes into the signal light, shattering the glass and breaking the bulb with his body. The Vulture lay within the light, burning from the intense heat and barely able to move to relieve any of his pain. The first on the scene is Carly Cooper, and she is furious. What has Spider-Man done? The Spider-Man she knows would never do something like this. Never. Well, say something, she demands. He has erred. He hasn't played his part well. Otto understands that this woman knows Parker, and she can tell that something is off. He needs to think. He has Peter's memories, so what would he say? Otto steps forward and reasons with Carly that the last time they faced the Vulture, he put Carly's life in danger, and she told him that the Vulture did it because he knew the kind of man Spider-Man was. He knew that Spider-Man would do the right thing. And tonight, after harming the children, the Vulture had to know. The kind of man you are now? Carly finishes. Ah, Otto says, relieved. Good. Good. Now you see. Otto has spent a month inside Peter Parker's head, and Otto has found him wanting. Peter was a man of limited vision. No plans, no schemes, just blindly going from one thing to the next. That will not be Otto. Most spiders have 8 eyes. As of tonight, thanks to Otto's spider bots, he shall have 8,000 eyes. Rest easy, New York. Your hero, Dr. Otto Octavius, the superior Spider-Man, is watching over you. Otto intervenes on his third break-in of the night. He cannot help but notice that, on average, he is apprehending 4 times as many criminals as his predecessor. And he has personally prevented the theft of an additional $12 million in property. He is also doing a better job at tying up loose ends. Case in point, rounding up the vulture's underage minions. 2 of the children may have gotten away, one of them Gully, but no matter. It is only a matter of time. Of course, with his newfound efficiency also comes newfound respect. His spider bots keep him abreast of all the situations that merit his attention, and a few that do not. Otto reroutes a Class 3 fire in progress to a local fire department. He has places to be, and he has already done far more than his share. Well, far more than Parker ever did. A nagging voice in the back of Otto's head tells him to go back and address the occurrence himself. Ignore it, Otto thinks. Like he said, he has more important things to do. He has responsibilities. Like joining Aunt May for her therapy session. His aunt gives him a peck on the cheek, thanking him for his support. She is just happy that Peter has decided to turn over a new leaf. Spending so much time with her, she's gonna get spoiled. Otto takes this time to speak with the medical doctor overseeing May in hopes that there will be a surgery in her future to get her to walk again. The doctor tells him, once again, that his aunt is far too old for any radical surgery. It would be too dangerous. Thank you for your opinion, doctor. Otto scowls. Later, when Otto arrives at Horizon Labs, he tells the living brain that they have work to do. He will require neurocircuitry, hydraulic pumps, and coffee. Lots of coffee. If Parker could see him now, Peter Parker is going to get credit for another one of Otto's inventions. When he finishes, he summons Max Modell, who, it can be said, as the head of Horizon Labs, he is not used to the feeling of being summoned, and he can't say he cares for it at all. They do have procedures for this kind of thing. All projects should be run through the fellow members of his think tank before addressing his concerns higher. Enough formalities, Otto says quickly. Here, a new lightweight exolimb. With a neural interface grafted to the spine and brain, the injured will walk again. The first trial, of course, will be his Aunt May. Human trials? Max interjects. What are you, Frankenstein? Uatu Jackson, prodigy scientist, asks as he looks at the mechanical contraption. That's Dr. Peter Parker, Otto snaps, and you'll do well to remember that. Max responds by telling Otto that he isn't a doctor, and inflating his resume won't get him anywhere. Impossible, Otto thinks as he slams his invention down. He received his doctorate at 16. Parker, what have you done with your life? He refuses to live in a world without his well-earned title. He's a doctor, damn it, a doctor! That night, at the Ravencroft Asylum for the Criminally Insane, Dr. Ashley Kafka approaches the padded cell of Massacre. The guard escorting her cannot, for the life of him, understand why she focuses on this inmate above all others. They have legit supervillains locked up there. In Massacre, he's just a guy. You're wrong, Dr. Kafka corrects him. Massacre, or Marcus Lyman's, brain was physically damaged. He is incapable of assigning any value to human life. The man is the highest functioning sociopath that she has ever met. She instructs the man guarding the door to the cell to open it for her, and when he does, she screams. An undressed man, neck twisted a full 360 degrees, slumped on the floor of the cell, blood spatter spread across the padding behind him. That's Seaborn? But if that's Seaborn, then... Massacre, dressed in the dead security officer's uniform, snaps the neck of the officer that was escorting Dr. Kafka. Please! Dr. Kafka knows that Massacre, Marcus, is a man of logic, and he keeps his word. So, he must understand that he needs her to get out of the asylum. Massacre looks down at the doctor, eye to eye, and tells her, "No, that's not true, Dr. Ashley Kafka. I don't need you at all." The next morning, the Dean of Students at Empire State University tells Mr. Parker how thrilled everyone is to have such an illustrious alumnus re-enroll, and such a generous donation, and a reference from Spider-Man himself. How could she say no? But there is the matter of his thesis, and he still has a credit in advanced physics to complete. They may be partway through the semester, but she is sure that he can catch up. When Otto sees his teacher, he cannot help but laugh. Dawn, the Snoz, Lamaze? Is this for real? Unbelievable! Years ago, Otto and Lamaze were classmates. The guy's a buffoon! Obviously, Otto's laugh doesn't leave a good impression, and Lamaze stomps away angrily. "Nice one, Slick," a voice says from nearby. "Here, if you're gonna survive this class, you're gonna need this." A woman hands Otto a card, but before he can turn around to look, she's gone. He examines the card, and it reads, A. Marconi, tutor, chemistry and physics. What the? Him? Out of all people! Suddenly, Otto receives a call from the mayor's office. He's being summoned to Ravencroft Asylum. Once Spider-Man arrives, he asks Mayor Jameson, Chief Pratchett, and Officer Carly Cooper for an update. It's one breakout after another in this city, but this one is on Spider-Man. At first, Otto is insulted until Jonah informs him that it was Marcus Lyman, the mass killer known as Massacre, that escaped. A man whose life Spider-Man saved. Spider-Man promised he would never escape, that he would never kill again. Now, 8 more men and women are dead, and their blood is on Spider-Man's hands. Carly shows Spider-Man Dr. Kafka's corpse, and he then vows that not one more innocent life will be lost. And he gives Mayor Jameson his word that he will end Massacre once and for all. Somewhere in Westchester, a local burger town finds itself busy with customers. So much so that no one second guesses the uniformed man with a metal plate on his head and a gun in his hand until it's too late. He slurps on his drink so that innocents can hear that their time is coming to an end. Massacre asks the cashier if they carry Mocha-Cola or Fizzy-Cola. He cannot help but be somewhat let down with the answer he receives. Burger Town is a subsidiary of Fizzy-Co. They only serve Fizzy-Cola. Oh, that's a shame, Massacre replies. He'd kill for a Mocha-Cola. He turns to address the others in the restaurant. Burger Town customers, these are your rules. Mobile devices, car keys, and wallets on the floor. I lock you up in the back and no one has to die. This meal, your money, one of your cars, and I'm gone. It actually makes my life easier. I conserve ammo as long as none of you try to be a hero. This will work just fine for everyone. Massacre watches as a cashier presses the silent alarm. He sighs before telling everyone that they should know this gun didn't kill anyone. He didn't kill anyone. That man, the cashier, did. He broke the rules. Bullets fly and people scream. They fight, they push, they shove, they hide, and no matter what they do, it all ends the same. The thick glass in front of the building cracked, shattered, and stained with bullets and blood. The smoke from the barrel of the gun slowly dances in the air as Massacre admires his doings. There are only two sounds left in the building: the sound of a baby crying and the sound of Massacre finishing his drink. "It's all right," he says calmly while he looks at the mother and child, the only two survivors, in the eye. He left them alive on purpose. He needs hostages. For now. Elsewhere, Spider-Man stops at the lab of Uatu Jackson and demands his assistance. Spider-Man needs Uatu's facial recognition software. Previously, Uatu had given the software to Yuri Watanabe, the Wraith, and it helped her hunt down and locate criminals. Spider-Man tells Uatu that his plan is to synchronize the facial recognition software with his spider bots. There is a mass murderer out, and every second they don't find him, more lives are in danger. In the middle of the city, the hostage woman and her child exit the vehicle, and Massacre tells her that she is free to go. However, if she makes a scene, then he opens fire on both her child, and countless others. The woman nods her head to motion that she understands. "Good," Massacre says. There are two options. One, he blends into the crowd and she never sees him again. Or two, he follows her for 5 to 10 blocks, and if at any time she calls out, he will kill her and her son. It's her choice. "So, where to now, goalie?" one of the Vulture children asks the other. "Spidey messed up their friends real good, and the cops know all about their hideout, so they can't go back there. And if they stay out in the open, then those weird spider robots will find them." "Damn it, look, goalie!" one of the children yells as he points out one of the onlooking spider bots. "We're screwed! He's gonna get us now!" A boot stomps down on the robot, shattering it to pieces. No, he won't. Spread the word. There's someone who can keep them safe from the spider. Someone who knows his every trick and how to crush him once and for all. And that would be him. It has been a long night for Miranda Pullman, the CEO of Physicola Industries, parent company of BurgerTown. A long, stressful night, full of dodging calls from the media members like Nora Winters from the Daily Bugle. Earlier that day, there was a massacre at a local burger town, leaving 27 dead. This, as Miranda would put it, has created a branding complication for Physicola Industries. When people hear Burger Town, now all they think is mass murder. The damn Burger Town logo is in every shot on the news as they show the bodies getting carted away by the paramedics, she explains. Sales are down. Stock is plummeting. For the lack of a better term, they're getting slaughtered out there. Miranda is interrupted mid-conversation by the appearance of Marcus Lyman, Massacre. He tells her to end the call or he will kill her. But how? Miranda asks. I kidnapped your doorman's family, Massacre tells her, but that's not important. I'm here, Miranda, because I have a business proposition. Massacre walks over to the DVD player and enters a disc. As you know, my actions have tarnished your company's image. Apparently, even more than your recent ad campaign, where you doctored old footage of beloved American icons to associate them with your product. That didn't go well, did it? But what if you had gone the other way and had the truly despised endorsing your competition? That's what I can do for you. For $12 million, I'll walk into the heart of New York and kill everyone in sight. And all while wearing your competitor's logo. Normally, you can't buy this kind of bad publicity, Massacre says as he opens his trench coat, revealing the Mocha-Cola logo. Well, today, you can. Elsewhere, Spider-Man and Uatu Jackson sit atop of Horizon Labs. Uatu has his own reservations, but Spider-Man fails to see the problem. Peter Parker, Max Modell, and a number of other scientists at Horizon Labs build equipment for Spider-Man, so why should Uatu be any different? He doesn't mention it to the boy, but Otto finds it so irksome to have to go to Uatu Jackson, the so-called child prodigy, for help. But his facial recognition software is already complete, and once it's uploaded to Otto's network of spider bots, he will be able to track down Massacre in a blink of an eye. Once it starts working, Spider-Man begins to receive data from all over the city, hundreds of matches, criminals, ex-cons, persons of interest. Perfect, Spider-Man decides as he begins to swing away. Once Massacre shows his face, one of Otto's spider bots will alert him. This will give Otto enough time to move on to his next order of business, the apartment of one Anna Maria Marconi. Otto knocks on the door, and for the first time, he sees Anna. For a moment, he is at a loss of words. The words you're looking for are little and person, she tells him. About time you got here. Come in, the food's getting cold. Wait, Otto says, I'm only here to ask you to stop with your constant emails, texts, and messages. I do not require your services. Actually, Slick, you do. And if you're going to pass Dr. Lamaze's class, here, Anna leads Otto to the dinner table. The first one's on the house. And each lesson comes with a home-cooked meal. It's my specialty, she continues. I'm a science chef, using chemistry and physics to prepare the perfect dishes. After dinner, it does not take Otto long to impress Anna with his knowledge of unstable molecules. They may just be theories to the everyday scientist, but unstable molecules are far from theoretical. They exist. Reed Richards discovered them a long time ago, and Otto may have come across them one day. Who can really say? Many, like Lamaze, believe unstable molecules mimic properties of neighboring matter, but Otto believes that they are the fundamental building blocks of the universe. They don't change, they merely reveal a small facet of their infinite potential. Anna's mind is officially blown. She thought Peter Parker would be no more than just a pretty face, but he's actually a genius. Otto thanks Miss Marconi and tells her that he will be looking forward to their next session. Oh, this ain't over yet, Anna tells him. You haven't even had dessert. Later, as Spider-Man swings through the city, he thinks about the evening he spent with Anna. It was hands down the best meal he had in years. Suddenly, his patrol app goes off. His spider bots have finally found him, Massacre, walking amongst the crowd in Grand Central Station. Quickly, Spider-Man places a call to Chief Pratchett to alert the MTA police on site and to assemble as many additional units as possible. With any luck, the officers will keep Massacre busy as Spider-Man makes another quick detour. First, he switches his lenses to detect radio waves. If Otto is correct, according to Parker's memories, Massacre likes to hold additional hostages in other locations. Ones he keeps wired to explosives that he can detonate via remote. Going by the frequency he used before, it should be simple enough to track. Spider-Man arrives at the Coca-Cola bottle plant and warehouse and sees a number of hostages strapped to crates of inventory with incendiaries strapped to each individually. Everyone remain calm. I'm Spider-Man, an Avenger, here to rescue you. Otto begins to untie each of the hostages, and it goes surprisingly quick. Such simple devices. He is very familiar with these kinds of traps. But all the same, it is very surreal. Not long ago, Otto was trying to extinguish almost all life on Earth, and now, look at him. How has it come to this? Saving the lives of a paltry few? And in the grand scheme of things, does it even matter? Within Grand Central Station, police officers attempt to apprehend Massacre, but the situation goes south quickly. Massacre pulls out 2 automatic weapons from his trench coat and begins to unload on the officers and nearby civilians. Rumbling from the gunfire echoes throughout the area, and anyone who can attempts to rush for the exits. However, the doors are all locked shut and rigged with explosives. The officers surrounding the building have no choice but to stay back in hopes to not cause the explosives to trigger. And within the mayor's office, Jonah is hopeless. Damn it, Spider-Man. You promised me you'd deal with this. Where in blazes are you? Within the station, countless people fall to the ground and cries echo within the corridors. Menace says nothing. He just lets the rifle rumble. Spider-Man finds an opening in an upper window and he silently crawls down the wall. He knows that he has to keep quiet. He needs to keep the element of surprise. But when Menace aims his rifle at a child, something within Otto tells him to move. He reaches out, zips a web line, and grabs the boy in order to pull him to safety. Why did I do that? Spider-Man thinks. I gave up my tactical advantage. Menace turns to look at Spider-Man. Good, he thinks, as he begins to fire off rounds in the wall crawler's direction. Spider-Man jumps to the left and vaults to the right in order to dodge the barrage of bullets. All this does is put innocent people at the mercy of Menace. Damn it! People are getting shot all around me. I could have ended this by now. I need to focus. One thing matters here. Taking this lunatic out. Spider-Man springs forward off the wall and uses his momentum to land a powerful punch that causes Menace to drop one of his guns. Enough, Menace tells Spider-Man as he pulls out a remote device. I have 5 hostages strapped to incendiary devices. In a warehouse 20 blocks away? No, you don't. Spider-Man walks forward, examining the gun that Menace dropped. He kneels down, picks up the weapon, and places his finger on the trigger. Menace, unsure of what is happening, begins to click the button repeatedly on the device to no avail. Without saying a word, Spider-Man lifts the weapon, pulls the trigger, and fires a bullet into Menace's left shoulder. Menace falls to the ground and begins to bleed out. In an attempt to regain some kind of advantage, he tries to crawl over to the gun he had previously dropped. Spider-Man jumps up and lands with a stomp on Menace's arm, causing him to cry out in pain. Tentacles, robots, lasers, death traps. So many ways Otto has taken lives over the years. Firearms seemed beneath him somehow. But there is a finality to this. This would solve everything. The innocent and injured people of the city begin to stand up and behind Spider-Man in support. So what now? Spider-Man asks. Do I web you up? Leave you for the cops with a friendly little note? Wait till you break out again and kill again, capture you again, over and over. How many are dead and dying here? When is it enough? What should I do, Marcus? Tell me! One man from the crowd behind him speaks up. Do it! Spider-Man begins to pull back on the trigger, and for the first time, Menace begins to shed a tear. He's scared. Now, tears begin to flood from both of his eyes. It's fear. It's the first thing that Menace has felt in years. He feels something. He actually feels something. Real emotion. Menace has an inner feeling of joy at the realization that he isn't a hollow shell. But this changes nothing, Spider-Man tells him. You are who you are. That killer will always be hiding inside of you. There is only one solution here. Otto pulls the trigger. just like that, it's over. That night, within Miranda Pullman's condo, she urgently scans the news for any mention of their competitor, Mocha-Cola. Unbelievable. Her and Marcus made a deal. On the other hand, it looks like the news outlets have stopped talking about her company at least. All they seem to mention is the Grand Central Station. Well, she decides as she turns the television off, the important thing is, on her end, this is all over. No, Miss Pullman, not yet, Spider-Man says as he forces Miranda's TV screens to turn on once again, revealing himself as the one who is speaking. There is still your part in all of this. Your secret bank account, paying a twisted man to do twisted things. I am familiar with the practice. You paid him your blood money. You sat back and watched, and you told no one. Well, now you can tell the authorities. Tell them or answer to me, Spider-Man says as his spider bots infest the condo and begin crawling onto Miranda. She screams in terror as Spider-Man continues to speak. I see everything in this city. Everything. That is my power and my responsibility to watch over and judge you all. Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Corey with The Overlook, and we make audio drama versions of the books that you may have overlooked. September has been pretty slow for us production wise, but we wanted to make sure we took some time out to thank everybody for watching. So this will start our series going over the tie-ins and team-ups of the Superior Spider-Man saga. So this is where he meets a lot of heroes more of a one-on-one basis and really kind of transforms into more of a hero himself, learning lessons along the way, things like that. If you like it, cool. This week we find out what happens when Spider-Man and the God of Thunder take on Antimatter Electro. So this all happens in between issues 6 and 7, so I'll put that in the right place in the playlist just so you know. Yeah, and I hope you like it. Several months ago, the Avengers fought the Sinister Six. When Electro took the form of pure electricity, Thor used his hammer to absorb the villain, like lightning, and shoot him into space. It broke Chapman's record for the world's fastest pitch. Electro has not been back since. However, a few days ago, outside Far Rockaway, Queens, Electro returned to Earth, angry. Thor, I'm gonna kill him, Electro roars, unfazed by any onlookers in the vicinity. At the moment, his mind is still hazy, so he lets his anger guide him. Electro launches himself back into the night sky, leaving nothing but a crater in his wake. Otto Octavius arrives on the scene and scans the crater on the beach. He muses to himself that he knew this day was coming. The energy signature that led him there is unmistakable. Welcome back, Electro, he mumbles to himself. Max Dillon is not the smartest man on Earth, but he may be one of the most powerful. As Dr. Octopus, Otto worked with Electro a number of times as part of Otto's Sinister Six. And an equal number of times, Electro either failed Otto or betrayed him. The man can transform into pure electricity, a human lightning bolt. To think what Max could accomplish if he didn't have a chip on his shoulder the size of Manhattan. Otto is sure it doesn't help that they were both constantly defeated by Peter Parker. But during their last outing, against the Avengers, Electro was not just defeated, he was shown what true power is when he faced the mighty Thor, a being who can control lightning. Thor humiliated him. Surely, Electro knows better than to take Thor on again. Within a secret base of AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, Electro waits as a number of scientists delegate. So, can you do it or not? One moment, a scientist tells him before resuming the delegation with the others. They run their numbers and test their calculations. When they are finished, the scientists turn back to Electro and tell him, "Yes, Mr. Dillon, we can help you kill Thor." Later, on Avengers Tower, Spider-Man warns Thor of the danger around the corner, but Thor just laughs in Otto's face. "I don't think you're taking this seriously," Spider-Man says sternly. "No, indeed I am not. But I thank you for this moment of laughter. It was much needed after recent days." Spider-Man again warns Thor not to underestimate Electro. He's powerful, he's motivated, and he won't stop. "Spider-Man, please," Thor places a hand on Spider-Man's shoulder. "I am the god of thunder. Lightning, as Electro learned, obeys my every command. I have as much to fear of him as I do of the rain, which is to say, nothing at all." Spider-Man slaps away Thor's hand and zips a line to swing elsewhere. "Remove your hand. You know what? This was a waste of my time. I'm sure you don't have anything to worry about. It's not like the Sinister Six took you down or anything." "Oh wait, you're probably right. You've got nothing to worry about with Electro. Good luck, Hammerhead." Otto arrives back at his apartment, frustrated at the recent events. God of thunder, mouth-breathing, muscle-bound, remnant of a dead civilization. Does he realize who he's talking to? Perhaps Parker enjoyed condescension. Part of Otto hopes that Electro does find his way to take his revenge, just so he can watch. Currently, Otto has tapped into enough of the planet's weather satellites that he should be able to identify Electro's energy signature anywhere in the world. When a beacon pings on Otto's screen, he peers at the indicated coordinates. He is familiar with the location. "Dillon, you fool," he begins. "What have you done?" Within the AIM facility, Electro eagerly urges the scientists to move faster. The scientists tell Electro that he needs to be aware. Such a radical change on a subatomic level could have severe consequences. The process will convert his energy from electrons to protons, the same as during a massive discharge of lightning. Spider-Man fights through wave after wave of yellow-suited scientists throughout the entirety of the facility until he lays eyes on his villain. "Electro!" Spider-Man bellows, but it is already too late. He finds Electro hooked up to a massive machine already turned on, causing off-colored lightning to emerge from Electro and strike all around the room. Electro lets out a blood-wrenching scream in pain as his body is transformed on a molecular level. Dear God, Spider-Man thinks. It's a quantum field generator. That's actually quite impressive. But why would... Oh no, Spider-Man thinks as he realizes. Electro's skin turns negative and the machine turns on with a crack as all the energy is redirected back into Electro's body. Within an instant, he leaves. However, Spider-Man already knows where he is going. Elsewhere, in New York City, within McManus's Irish pub, Thor finishes regaling the patrons with a tale of victory. He finishes his story and gulps down the remnants of his ale before throwing the pitcher on the ground with a shatter. "Another!" he yells. "And then I'll tell you the tale of my defeat of the Midgard." Spider-Man tracks down Thor using the Avengers card and barges into the pub. "You have to listen to me," Spider-Man reasons. "You have to listen to me. Electro has undergone quantum conversion. If my analysis is right." "Your analysis, Spider-Man, means nothing, because Electro means nothing. Now, run along. I have better things to do than listen to your bleeding." With another loud crack, lightning strikes, piercing through Thor, causing him untold amounts of pain and spreading across the pub. Spider-Man jumps around the bolts of electricity thanking his spider sense. To be fair, he reasons, he did warn Thor. Quite a bit, actually. And aside from almost dying by Electro's hands, Otto is almost proud. If only Max had shown this kind of initiative when he was working with the Sinister Six. Thor, still trying to gain a mental grasp on the ongoing event, loses his footing in pain. How can lightning, of all things, affect him? Electro materializes before the heroes. Drunk on power, he asks, "How do you like me now? You laughed at me. You treated me like I was nothing. But now, you'll see. I am Electro. I am your death." Electro gently lands on the ground and composes himself before raising an arm and sending another bolt of electricity to incapacitate the god. Thor shakes off the attack by using Mjolnir to conjure lightning of his own. "I have had enough," he tells his enemy. "I cast you out before, villain. I shall do so again." Thor attempts to absorb Electro back into the hammer, but Electro avoids the blast of energy with ease. "This is not possible," Thor mutters. "What's the matter, Blondie? Magic trick's not working? Because I'm not going anywhere. But you are." Spider-Man watches as the sparks begin to fly. AIM did it. From what Otto can tell, they found a way to create an antimatter version of Electro. "Stop!" Spider-Man calls out to interrupt the battle. "Electro, what AIM did to you? It's dangerous! You have to let me..." Electro flings another lightning bolt, this one directed at Spider-Man, interrupting the wall crawler mid-sentence. "There's only one thing I need to do at the moment, Spider-Man. And when I'm done, you're next." No one listens to Spider-Man. Not Electro, and certainly not Thor. Electro blasts Thor out of the pub and sends him flying to a number of moving cars and traffic. Thor rises to his feet, crackling with energy, and states, "You wish to have power, mortal? Is that it? Then I shall show you power. I shall show you true lightning." Spider-Man again tries to stop Thor, telling him that Electro has turned himself into an antimatter version of himself. If Electro takes a direct hit of electricity, then there is a chance that the protons and electrons will collide, causing annihilation. Thor interrupts, now caught up on the situation. For a Viking, Thor certainly does know his nuclear physics. Otto then muses on the cause of all of this. Could this all be traced back to him? Otto was the one that unleashed Electro against Thor in the first place, after all. And now, Electro has enough power to take out the state of New York. Otto remembers back to the vow that he made to the dying Peter Parker, and there's no denying it. What Electro does now is his responsibility. Spider-Man swings upward, and Thor flies after, but Electro makes sure that he stays close behind. "That's it! Run! No matter where you go, I can find you, Thor. I can feel you, the electricity coursing through you. I own you." Hearing this, Thor stops to face Electro. Spider-Man tells Thor that he needs a little bit of time. He took some of the components from the AIM lab, and if he has just a little bit of time, he can create a countermeasure. In truth, Otto requires a day, 2 maybe. Instead, he has minutes to rig a field version of AIM's quantum field generator. Minutes until Thor dies, or the sheer interaction between the two powerhouses unleash an antimatter explosion that will kill millions. If Thor had just listened to him, unthinking brute, to think that he claims to be a prince or a king or whatever. In the end, just another caped fool. Otto looks to the sky and sees Thor getting pierced by yet another bolt of lightning. No! No man can withstand this, Spider-Man thinks. And yet, Thor takes it. Over and over, Electro rains down pain that Otto cannot even imagine. And Thor still stands his ground. Thor is sacrificing his life to buy Otto time. Otto called him arrogant, but Thor would die to save these lives. Otto loses himself momentarily, gazing at the bolts flying throughout the sky. Once he snaps himself back to reality, it is only a little longer until he finishes the field generator. His genius amazes even himself. "Thor!" he yells. "You wanted to blast Electro? Now's your chance!" "You said it would cause..." "For Asgard, you fool!" Thor turns back to Electro and begins to conjure his own powerful bolts of electricity. Storm clouds begin to spiral and paint the sky black. "So be it," Thor states. "Electro, prepare yourself!" Thor flings Mjolnir forward, discharging massive amounts of energy, and Electro responds by sending out a counterbolt of his own. The lightning strikes collide and the energy begins to crack as the protons and electrons interact. That very same crackling energy is then sent directly downward into the direction of the Earth, being drawn towards the running field generator. And in that flash of light, Otto experiences doubt. If he is wrong, he just killed millions of people, least of all himself. But Thor trusted him. A god put his life in Otto's hands. It would be humbling if it were not so appropriate. If all of this did not prove that Otto is Thor's better. Thor falls to the ground below and lands within the wreckage of the city. Spider-Man reaches out a hand to help Thor to his feet, and Thor's first question to him is for an explanation of what just happened. Spider-Man tells him, "At the point of annihilation, I was able to redirect the energy from AIM's generator. I suspect it was quite a show from space." "And Electro?" Thor asks. "His energy forms protons were destroyed. Any electrons that survive, dispersed." Thor frowns and looks at Spider-Man as if he's seeing him for the first time. Villain or not, Electro was a worthy foe. Yet, you speak of him as if he were a problem to be solved. I should have heeded your warning, Spider-Man. I will not let it happen again. But your manner is disrespectful. At that, Spider-Man swings away. He underestimated Thor. Otto saw him as nothing more than an arrogant, brutish fool. And though that's all true, he was willing to sacrifice himself for the people he protects. What is Otto willing to do? The day will come when he will have to ask the question, how far is he willing to go to get what he wants? Since he has taken over Peter Parker's body, he has been on a mission to tie up loose ends. First, his arms. Second, Sandman. Now, Electro. The two villains bank on their respective chambers, begging for their release, like animals in captivity. However, their cries fall on deaf ears, for they are already caught within Otto's web. On the front steps of City Hall, J. Jonah Jameson stands at his podium in front of the news cameras and demands order in his city. He proposes that anyone who uses a superpower in a crime gets a mandatory 10-year sentence. Nora Winters of the Daily Bugle asks Mayor Jameson, with the number of superhuman crimes committed in the city, isn't the mayor worried about the burden it will place on the raft? Our so-called super prison? Asks Mayor Jameson. It's a joke. How many freaks and menaces escaped from it this month alone? That's why, as my next act as mayor, I'm shutting it down for good. Nora Winters asks if her cameraman, Phil Urich, got that. He did. And if things weren't hard enough for him, for Phil Urich, being the new Hobgoblin is starting to become more trouble than it's worth. He has to give most of what the Kingpin pays him to the Tinker for his new Hobgoblin gear, and the rest to the original Hobgoblin so he doesn't kill Phil for using his name. Suddenly, one of Mayor Jameson's security detail gets an alert that a potential threat was posted online. The other 3 security members get into position, all surrounding Jameson as they try to lock eyes on the zipping white and purple streak. Screwball shoots by on her purple skates and slides to a stop. And we're live. You're good to go, partner. Take the shot. At her request, the Jester appears and jumps off of one of the bodyguards, using her as a landing pad. The Jester lifts up his purple bag fastened around his shoulder and pulls out a pie. He jumps off the guard he landed on, bounces off a nearby pillar, and springs forward towards Jameson and slams the pie in the mayor's face. You've been jested! And to answer our poll, Screwball begins as she runs towards Jameson, keeping her body low to the ground. She approaches him and rips down his pants, revealing his underwear. Boxers it is! The 2 criminals leave their victim with a spray bottle of water to the face. They leap and zip away, telling everyone that Screwball and Jester are out. If they want to see more exclusive headcam footage, go to screwball.com. The news and camera crews let out an uproar, and all across the city, the same laughter is heard as their loyal subscribers tune in for their specific form of comedy. Even Otto cannot help but let out a cackle. He leans back from his laptop screen and begins to laugh to the sky. He hasn't laughed like that in years, since before he switched bodies with Peter Parker. As expected, he receives a notification on his Spider app shortly after. It is a summons to the mayor's office. As Spider-Man arrives, the security detail jumps into place, pulling out their pistols and setting their sights on the wall crawler. If only they would have had such reflexes 40 minutes ago. Mayor Jameson approaches, telling his security detail to let Spider-Man through. This man's a hero. He took out the Grand Central Shooter the other day and saved countless lives. Jameson even goes as far as to offer his pal Spider-Man a drink. Now, you may be wondering why I asked you here, Jameson begins. Spider-Man, already keen on the situation, finishes. You want me to apprehend Jester and Screwball? Sorry, not worth my time. I've got better things to do. The anger in Jameson begins to boil. But they humiliated me, and my office, in public. I should have known you'd side with them, considering all the times you've hung me upside down, stuck me to my chair, glued my mouth shut. Jameson's comments remind Otto of how many times his own glasses have been webbed by the wall crawler. You're right. Bullies like that need to be put in their place, and I'm just the man to do it. Don't worry, Your Honor. I'll have those bothersome buffoons brought down in no time. Within the Avengers Tower, Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, Wolverine, and Spider-Man stand around a table and begin to delegate. Captain America states that now that everyone has agreed that there is something about the whole Spider-Man situation that seems off, they must make a decision. In the past few weeks, Spider-Man has changed. He's brutalized his enemies, even killed one of them. A discussion must be made about his place on the team. Thor is the first to speak up. Him and Spider-Man recently teamed up to take down a Black Lightning enhanced Electro. He now seems erratic, wild, arrogant. Widow co-signs with Thor and says that he has a point. It seems that Wolverine is the only one who will give Spider-Man the benefit of the doubt. Which one of them doesn't have blood on their hands? He looks around the table and sees a bunch of spies, soldiers, and killers. They've all done their share of avenging, but now they want to hold Spider-Man to a different standard? This is when he may need them most. So he says, they wait and see where it goes next. Elsewhere, Otto has arrived at school ahead of schedule. Unlike Parker, he will excel at maintaining his work-life balance. And today, he is meeting with the lovely Miss Anna Maria Marconi from physics class. Why, here she is now, right on time. Anna Maria slides her microcar into a parking spot only to be greeted by two men's obnoxious laughter. As they say, it is the world's worst clown car. Only one clown gets out. The two hold their sides and rock back and forth, both patting each other on the back in congratulations on a job well done. Anna Maria ignores them and begins to make her way to her and Peter's meeting. Insolent wretches, Otto thinks. No one should have to suffer such assaults. No one. Suddenly, within Otto's subconscious, Peter gets dragged to a memory of Otto enduring the same kind of ridicule and torture. That day, he vowed to make his bullies pay. To make them all pay. Once Otto catches up to Anna, he tells her that he can go back and teach those two men a lesson if she needs him to, but she rejects the offer, saying that in every way that matters, she's bigger than that. But now, for the real reason she asked Peter to join her that morning. To get a second chance to make a first impression with Dr. Lamaze. We're meeting him for coffee. Play nice. Unbelievable, Otto thinks. The one man standing between him and Peter Parker's doctorate is Don the Snoz Lamaze. Oh, what fresh hell is this? Otto is starting to understand the real reason Parker donned his tights. So he could take all of his frustrations out on other costumed freaks. What Otto wouldn't give for some now. Elsewhere, Screwball and the Jester make their way through the city. Their newest Jameson Pie video was an instant success. Best one yet. The Jester wouldn't believe how many likes they've already gotten. All the while, Screwball has her programs fishing through their accounts, grabbing all the viewers' passwords and credit card info. They're going to be rich, and there's no way anyone can track it back to them. Screwball has got every angle covered. Back at Empire State University, Lamaze sips on his coffee as he begins. My star pupil, Miss Marconi, tells me you've settled on a subject for your thesis? Yes, Otto responds. Neuroactivated cybernetics. Ah, yes, an interesting subject. One of my specialties, actually. Really, Otto thinks. The brainless oaf couldn't even spell it back in their freshman year. Suddenly, Otto's patrol app goes off, notifying him that the Jester and Screwball have been located. Otto quickly rises to his feet and excuses himself. He doesn't have time for this right now. He will have to apologize to Anna Maria later. What a remarkable woman, he thinks. When Otto sees Anna's two bullies from earlier, he decides that maybe he does have time for one extra thing. Screwball and the Jester sit atop of a city building and scope out their next potential target. They have some pretty high traffic on their website, but their servers can take another hit. How about that guy? The Jester proposes. Too old. We'd come off like jerks. Her? Too ethnic. It'd look all racisty. Gotcha. We want someone who's really got it coming to him. That is when Spider-Man swings over to the two of them, telling the two that they are both under arrest. Spider? Man! Perfect. We're going live. Spider-Man lands in front of the Jester and throws a right hook that the Jester easily avoids. This is your last warning. Stand down, if not, I will be forced to thrash you. Spider-Man then attempts to land a jab on Screwball and misses that as well. He cracks the building with his fist. Thrash me? Screwball asks. Are you for real? Come on, Spidey, where are the quips? All the one-liners. Spider-Man finally gets the upper hand and hits Screwball with an uppercut to the stomach. Perhaps, woman, I finally wised up and realized this is not a game. Ow! Screwball says as she falls to the ground. You totally punched me in the boob. You see that? She asks to the camera. Miss, I assure you, I had no intention of... Spider-Man is interrupted mid-sentence with a cheap shot to the groin. The Jester was afforded a small window of opportunity that he capitalized on completely. Here's one for the cheap seats, he says as he uses his slingshot to land a critical hit on the Spider. Every viewer around the city and the world begin to erupt with laughter. Can't believe you, Spider-Man begins. Honestly, even Screwball wasn't crazy about her partner's attack. But the Jester tells her, it's the internet, kid. There's no points for subtle. Balloons? Balloons. As the two criminals begin to lunge balloons filled with the sticky paint at Spider-Man, one explodes and covers his lenses completely. No, he thinks, not his glasses again. Spider-Man rips off his mask and lenses, and when he can finally lay his eyes on his foes again, he doesn't see them preparing to fight. He just sees them laughing. Are you catching this? The Jester asks. We made poor old Webhead lose his little bug eyes. The anger within Otto begins to boil. At Empire State, Anna places a call out to Peter for an explanation. He owes her one hell of an explanation. What on earth is so important that he had to run off like that? As Anna makes her way back to her car, she sees the car of the two bullies that parked next to her flipped over on its head. The glass in the windshield is crushed and compressing itself even more under the weight of the inverted vehicle. From within the car, two voices call out for help. They can't move and they're stuck. Oh my god, they're in the trunk, Anna announces. Don't worry, we'll get you out of there. 911, this is an emergency. Please hurry. Dear Lord, who would do such a thing? Back on the rooftop, Spider-Man jumps to the side and whips out two webs to grab his opponent. Here, he bellows. You find it funny to humiliate people? Is that it? He wraps up the Jester in his webs and uses him as a wrecking ball as he spins a full 360 degrees and collides the Jester's body with Screwball's. Let me show you what I find amusing. How is this for broad physical comedy? Not so funny now when it's at your expense, is it? Jester and Screwball roll to the opposite side of the building, and Spider-Man jumps closer to bridge the gap. When he does, he brings out his claws at his fingertips and slashes at the two. You're not laughing now, are you? You heard me. If this is so damn funny, laugh! Come on, clown, laugh this off. Screwball lets out a shriek in pain, and all across New York, the people closest to Peter watch. Mayor Jameson cheers Spider-Man on. That will show the crooks. Mary Jane cannot believe her eyes. This isn't the Peter she knows, and Captain America and Wolverine finally decide that it's time to take Spider-Man in. Otto continues to claw at his opponents over and over again, blood now dripping from their bodies and his fingertips. Well, this is your last chance. What do you have to say for yourselves? Wow, Screwball stutters, spitting out blood as she speaks. I guess someone can't take a joke. The memory of Peter Parker gets summoned to the surface. Doc, what's going on up here? Your brain's lit up like a Christmas tree. I was getting dragged into a million memories of... My God, Otto, what have you done?